You're watching Retro Cranbrook.
As we bring this series to a close, we can look back and see everything that happened, the successes and the failures. Don received over 20,000 signatures on a petition intended to bring into public focus the problems with 911, all because of losing a daughter in the worst way. Despite the hard work and accomplishments, there was still one last thing to endure: the trial of Cheyenne Learn. Will Tammy's killer be convicted of first-degree murder? Join us as we add the final bookend and ask ourselves, what went wrong? 911 and the loss of Tammy Ellis, Part 8, starts now.
Dad, please bring 911 back here.
Next thing I know, there's a bang at the door. This man standing there with a sawed-off shotgun. When I phoned 911, I was told all operators are busy. Please hold. Twice, at least.
All emergency operators are busy with other callers. Please do not hang up. Your call will be answered.
Why didn't they answer the phone? And I got this sick feeling inside of me that she could have been alive. Maybe she just laid there and bled to death. And I sure hope that you people can help me out to not let that happen again.
Next thing I know, he's standing where you're standing with a sawed-off shotgun. And no questions asked, nothing barely said, and just pointed at her and shot her.
Lynn Nealon recounts her terrifying ordeal when a man armed with a sawed-off shotgun burst through the door into her home last month and opened fire, killing Nealon's friend and roommate. RCMP eventually responded, but by then the shooter had escaped. With the help of a police dog, a manhunt was launched, and a 48-year-old suspect was arrested the next day and charged with first-degree murder.
Since his daughter's murder just before Christmas 2007, he's had to deal with the slow wheels of justice. The trial for the accused killer was supposed to start yesterday in Cranbrook Supreme Court, but at the 11th hour, the family found out it's been delayed for another 3 months.
I just thought enough's enough. How much can we put up with it? But it looks like he's got more rights than I do.
Cheyenne Learn was arrested within 1 day of Tammy Ellis's killing and has been in jail ever since. Yesterday in court, as the first-degree murder trial was about to start, he fired his lawyer and asked for new legal representation.
She frantically called 911, but to her horror, she couldn't get
Her
through.
parents have gathered 20,000 signatures on a petition, and they've been lobbying the province to restore a local 911 service, but so far with no progress.
Please bring 911 back here.
And now, Tammy's loved ones will also have to wait to see justice.
The fate of an accused killer is in the hands of a jury tonight as they try to determine if a Cranbrook man is guilty of first-degree murder. Cheyenne Learn is on trial for the killing of a woman almost 2 years ago. He's accused of shooting Tammy Ellis in the chest. As Brett Balla reports, drugs and alcohol were big factors in this trial.
Cheyenne Learn arrives in court in Cranbrook, his fate soon to be in the hands of the jury. They've spent weeks hearing how he shot Tammy Ellis 2 years ago. They now have to decide whether it's murder.
Well, it's been really horrible. He's trying a lot of different things. He's fired a lawyer. He's got another lawyer now, so it's going on to 2 years. And it's to sit through this and have a really cool mind is really, really hard. I'm doing it, but by the time I get home at night, both of us are really, we can't sleep. The things are to watch. What happened to my daughter and watch it on the screen and stuff, it was horrible. It's just, you can't imagine that it sticks in your mind and it won't go away. So I'm really hoping that the jury here will go first-degree murder and maybe he can do a little suffering in prison like he's made us suffer.
What was the main point in your final arguments that you wanted to get across to the jury today?
Well, the main point that we're trying to get across is that there was no real planning or deliberation and there was no intent. There was a lot of drinking, a lot of high emotions given the circumstances, and a very tragic incident occurred.
Is there really going to be relief, though, no matter what happens? Do you think that you can find relief?
No, it's now that everything that I've seen here is like a photocopy in my mind, and it's like I said, you lay down and all of a sudden you're just seeing that same picture all the time. It's really damn hard. It's to try to get it out of your mind. I think it'll be there till the day I die, and with my wife too.
It's been terrible. I just can't sleep or do nothing. I just like to see him suffer like he's made us suffer. It's terrible to see your daughter up there on... I don't want to talk about it.
Well, the differences are that first-degree murder requires planning and deliberation, and if there is no planning and deliberation, or there's a doubt about that, then the next step down is second-degree murder, and if there was no intention to kill, then there's no murder either. And so what you have is, what I think you have here is a very tragic manslaughter.
Do you think it hurt Learn's case by having himself going for his own defense?
I would like to think it did. I would like to think that my cross-examination of him was successful in bringing into the mix the fact that he wasn't so drunk he couldn't figure out what he was doing. She didn't provoke him, being Ms. Ellis, and that his own story, even prior to the cross-examination, was so incredible that I believe he did not help himself at all by testifying.
I can't see that he was that intoxicated. And nobody can prove that what he drank. I mean, he only might have had 2. I mean, who knows, eh? So I believe that he had it in his mind that he wanted to do something that, and he was capable of doing it. And I don't think if I was that drunk that he said he was, there's no way you're going to ride a bicycle in the wintertime. So that's how, what's in my mind anyways, that I think there was a lot of stuff that I didn't believe.
I like juries. I think it's a very integral part of our justice system, and for good reason. And they work very hard to do the right thing, and I'm sure this jury will do that. And I think they'll come up with the right decision.
And I guess the very basic thing we could say, it is certainly a tragedy no matter what the outcome may be.
Well, absolutely. I think the point's been made. It's a tragedy for the Ellis family. It's a tragedy for the Learn family. Nobody wanted this to happen.
So if you could get across the main point of what you were trying to say to the jury, what was the main points in your final closing statements to the jury?
Simply that Mr. Learn, while at his home, planned to do exactly what he did, which is to take the gun, to ride his bike over to the home with the intention of killing at least one occupant, which in the end turned out to be Tammy Ellis.
What's the difference if he planned on doing it or not?
If he planned on doing something, if he planned and deliberated, that would mean that, and the jury finds that he did, it would mean that he would be found guilty of first-degree murder. If he only intends on doing something without planning it first, so a sudden idea to accomplish it, that would mean that it would be second-degree murder. So that's the difference between the two. If there was no intent, but a killing happened, as you heard, defense counsel did acknowledge that that indeed did happen. That makes it a manslaughter. So.
Well, I know a little bit about shotguns. I'm a skeet shooter, and I'll tell you, to cut a gun and make it that small, and with a little pistol grip and with a 12 gauge, I'll tell you, if you had any other rounds in your hand, they would automatically jump right out of your hand. And the noise would scare you too, because it makes a lot of noise, eh? We have a skeet club out here where we shoot. We have to have ear protection and all that. And that gun, when I come out of there, my shoulder's black and blue lots of times. It really kicks a lot, eh?
Just that we have full confidence in the principles of reasonable doubt, and that the jury will come to a full and fair decision.
For you, what was the biggest moment for your side in this year trial?
I would have to say in Ms. LaHaye's evidence, which she was at the time Mr. Learn's ex-girlfriend, commenting on the comments that he said both to Tammy Ellis prior to the shooting and shortly afterwards when he phoned Ms. LaHaye's cell phone and commented at that point as well. Those were pretty integral, important points in the evidence. I would also have to say that his testimony and the cross-examination of him were extremely integral and important in establishing the Crown's theory. And I only hope that the jury understood it the same way I did and comes up with the same findings that I did.
Can you imagine, like, all the information the jury took in just today, how difficult that must be to process and sort out?
Well, like the judge said in his beginning of his charge, it took him 3 years of law school to figure it out. I can tell you it took me probably longer than that. It is a lot of information. I have a lot of confidence, though, in these jurors to understand and to process this information. It isn't complicated in terms of the facts, so they can concentrate a little bit more on what the facts mean to the law.
Tell us about Tammy.
She was the sweetest little girl in the whole world. She was my New Year's baby. She only weighed 3 pounds. I can't talk because I'm going to cry. I don't want to talk about her. She was just an angel to me. That's all I got to say.
Well, so far our lawyer is doing a fantastic job. I really give her a lot of credit. She's really right on every little detail, and I'm very pleased about that part. I really am. I'm just hoping now that with the jury we'll go the first degree. It'll probably give me a little peace of mind. I don't think you'll ever forget what's happened and what I had to go through with my wife and watch every detail. That's a pretty gory thing.
Through this.
I've been lucky insofar as I've been the Crown that has had conduct of this matter since the very beginning. And I've been very lucky in terms of being able to build, I think, a strong relationship with Ms. Ellis's parents and with the other witnesses for that matter. And they are an amazing group of people. They've put up with a lot of horrible things that have happened. And I think that we're all going to learn something from this in terms of how better to handle tragic situations like this in our community. And I can only hope that Tammy's death wasn't in vain in that regard, and that Tammy's parents, Don and Betty, will carry on their work to that end, and I wish them all the success.
Well, first degree, it's got to be first degree in my books. I want him to suffer in prison like he's made our family suffer, me and my wife and all our friends. I think that I've heard so many people tell me since this has happened, like this is going on 2 years, I never knew the guy, and they're telling me that he wasn't a very nice guy at all. He didn't like work, he had a violent temper, he was a drinker. My daughter told me that he was beating his girlfriend up. That's why she took her in. I think the guy probably deserves everything that he's got. And first degree would probably, well, it would make my mind a little bit easier. Just a little bit. Because I'll think of him in there.
A Cranbrook jury has found a man guilty of second-degree murder. Cheyenne Lurn was convicted today after just a few hours of deliberation. He shot Tammy Ellis in the chest in December of 2007. He was armed with a sawed-off shotgun as he rode his bike 3 kilometers, then kicked in the door where Ellis was watching movies with Lurn's ex-girlfriend. The defense argued Lurn was too drunk to know what he was doing, an argument the jury did not agree with. Lurn has been given an automatic life sentence with no chance of parole for 10 years.
Do you want me to let you off here and you can walk across the street, and then me and Betty will be walking in, and I'm going to pull around the other side?
Sure.
Okay.
Is there any sense of relief to this?
Yeah, I did have a real sigh when that judge said that. I was still hoping for first-degree murder, but he's got life, and I think he'll probably end up doing something bad in there the way he is, eh? So he'll probably never ever get out of there again. it's going to be on my mind till, and my wife's for life too. I mean, we've got a life sentence here too, not just him. That was the toughest thing I ever done in my whole life, to go through this, to see how he murdered my daughter and the autopsy. But I guess we got to go on. Got to kind of have a strong mind. And I hope that it'll start coming into me, because I still got that awful feeling that I can't, sleep. So we'll see what happens from now. Maybe talk to me 2 months down the road and see how I feel. But right now I got a really relief that we're not going to be sitting in there every day listening to the same thing. So I think my wife did too. I hear a big sigh out of her when the judge said that.
Is it okay if I ask you too, Betty?
No, I don't want to be asked.
Okay, that's fine. Are you feeling some sense of relief that this is over today?
It'll never be really over. I'm glad this part of this is done. Like the judge said, we'll never forget it. What we've seen and what we've gone through in the last 2 years. And I hope I never see his face again.
The process of being a witness and so on, is there a difficultness to having for someone else's crime to be tried for your life and to also be out there for everyone to see?
It's all difficult. It's been something I never wish on the worst enemy. But during the circumstances that it happened, all I could do is try and help the Michalsky family as much as possible get through this. Because I lost a dear friend that night too.
Thanks, Lynn.
Are you feeling any sense of relief at this point?
A little bit. A little bit. It could have been more, but life sentence is good.
What did you think about the process of what you saw in the courtroom?
I think the judge called it right, that he was controlling, and it was sad that, that wasn't a factor in the case that I was put through throughout the years. But I'm just really, really sorry for Tammy's parents. And sorry for any part that I had to do with it. And I just believe that she was my angel. She saved my life.
Is it tough to when somebody else is being tried for a crime that your own life comes out on the witness stand as well?
Yeah, it is really tough, but I've changed my life for the better. And if one good thing that came out of it is I'm clean. I've been clean for a year and a half, and I have a son, and he's my life. So.
How are you going to go on from here on out? Are you going to be able to move your life along now?
Yeah, I think that I will be able to have some sort of peace and justice, and just God knowing that he's hopefully never going to get out.
And I had a call from a woman. She was coming from Fernie, going into the hospital. She said, I went through the tunnel at Fernie and I've got really bad pains. Please send the ambulance. Never did show up. They didn't know where the tunnel was.
No, whereas you phone someone local here and they'll be able to tell you.
That's right on, sure. Yeah. Okay, are you guys ready over there? I got a bunch of shopping to do. Okay, Excuse me, Gord. Okay, come on, guys. Good job with your dad. Excellent job.
Thank you.
And I finally got a really, when that judge said that, I got a really kind of a sigh of relief, eh? I really felt good. My wife is still quite upset, so I'm not going to let her talk today. But I want to thank you guys, and that's all I got to say. Thanks again. Got the email on Tammy 911.
I heard that.
You did, eh?
That's going to turn out to be interesting if it is what some people suspect.
Yes. I can't believe that anybody would even think of doing that in a time like this. And not even taking the time out to give the right address and stuff, eh? So yeah, it was not very nice, and if they don't, we're going to try to find out who it is, and they should at least come up and say, you know, their address, their phone number, and whatever, and we'll talk to them about it. Whatever they did there was not nice of them. So.
What was the address of the post?
Well,
or is it still
there's
up?
the fellow there.
I haven't published the email.
Oh, I see. You got one.
She dared me to publish it, and I refused because she didn't give us the real information. But
What happened today in sentencing? Pretty much what you expected.
It was what I hoped would happen. Absolutely, you never can tell what to expect, but certainly it is what I hoped would happen.
It's only at this point where the judge will say, I accepted this, I didn't accept that, I'm weighing this way and that way. So how did you feel about his submissions, about his decision?
Absolutely wonderfully. I had perfect confidence when he was saying the findings that he made, that the sentence was going to be beyond the minimum. He took this case extremely seriously, the circumstances of it extremely seriously. He didn't minimize any of it.
I suppose this has nothing to do with you, but I'm asking you anyway. Would you expect an appeal?
It's always something that you expect when there are murder convictions. It's whether or not there's any reason to overturn the conviction or the sentence that is going to ultimately be the decision. I'm sure Mr. Learn and his counsel will be discussing that. And we'll see in the next month or so whether or not there will be an appeal filed.
A year before the murder trial was to start, Don and Gord Clark came up with the idea of building 2 websites where people across Canada could enter their 911 complaints and could choose to stay anonymous. It would have been Canada's 911 Repair Centre. By mid-2009, the websites were finished. Don went to the RCMP and other community leaders to ask for their support. Most declined. Without the support, Fix911.ca and EK911.com were scrapped. By the end of 2010, the Tammy 911 project had all but faded. With the murder trial over, Don and Betty Michalsky could finally sit back and relax. 3 years later, in May of 2013, Cheyenne Learn was granted a new trial. The understandable outrage of the Michalskys was lessened in December 2014 when Learn was convicted of second-degree murder for the second time. Sadly, Don passed away in 2022 before this series was released. He will be missed. Before we end the chapter and close the book, there's one more thing. To finish off the series of videos posted to Tammy911.com, we're going to leave you with the memorial slideshow made for Tammy, the first video posted to the website. The song was written and performed by Marilyn Christensen shortly after Tammy's death. As we close the book on this story, let's take one last moment to remember Tammy Lee Ellis. Neither her nor her courage should ever be forgotten. Perhaps now it won't be.
Inside, police found the lifeless body of a woman and two horrified friends who apparently witnessed her
It's
murder.
been around for 40 years in this country, the 911 emergency system.
Next thing I know, he's standing where you're standing with a sawed-off shotgun and shot.
In sheer terror, she frantically called 911, but to her horror, she couldn't get through.
More people are coming forward with serious complaints about the 911 emergency service in southeastern BC.
Dad, please bring 911 back here.
Little baby girl, born on New Year's Day, came into our lives the quickest way. A beautiful angel with big brown eyes. As a dad, how proud was I? And I said, well, I know, Tammy, you will do what's right with all your strength and might. Well, I know, Tammy, you loved me, and you can set me free. A young girl, full of passion and love, filled with hopes and dreams from above. She shared and cared with all of her heart, an angel, heaven's gift from the start. And I know, Tammy, you will do what's right with all your strength and might. And I know, Tammy, you love me, and you can set me free. Tammy was a friend who never ever let you down. No matter what, she'd be around until one night she gave her life, you see, for a friend in need. A hero and shall always be. Well, I know, Tammy, you will do what's right with all your strength and might. I know, Tammy, you loved me, keep up the fight. Bring back 911 and do what's right. And she said, I know, Dad, you will do what's right with all your strength and might. I know, Dad, you love